Hello, builders. It is May 29th, 2025, and this is the Buildable Office Hours that I, Justin Lapier, am going to be hosting today. Today's session, we are going to just go over some of the recent release notes that we've, for some features and bugs that we've updated within the product. Kind of talk over those a little bit and what that means for you all and what you're going to be seeing on your screen, and then some of the things that are happening behind the scenes that you may not see, but are additional features and functionality added to Buildable. And then after we do that, this month, the month of June that's coming up, we're only 2 days away from it, or 3 days rather, away from it. We are going to be, doing different, kind of targeting different industries for each month and gearing our office hours and our support towards, those specific industries. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, they're not valuable. These office hours won't be valuable for other industries while we're doing that, because, it's buildable. It's still building a solution within the product that, is geared towards specific businesses, and the tips and tricks that we'll be showing off on these office hours, can still be utilized across any other industry as well. So in June, we are actually, our goal with Buildable is to, not only build a product that is, a successful product, but also to help, businesses out there and, get more organized, streamlined, and more effective, and able to, deliver their goods and services better than what they're currently doing, with outdated, disconnected systems. So for June, we're actually going to be working with a lot of nonprofits. That's near and dear to a lot of our hearts over here at Buildable, and we know that this solution can help others. As someone said to me one time before, everybody needs this. You just got to show them that they need it. So that's the goal with Buildable, is that, we want to show you that there is a better way of building business systems, not passing around Excel files, things like that, and just staying better organized. And the beauty of Buildable is it can be used for any business of any industry. Any business that uses a spreadsheet, which I haven't come across a single business in my experience that doesn't, could utilize Buildable to have a more streamlined operations. So this month, I say this month, but we're 3 days away from June. We're really targeting, some nonprofits, and we'll delve into that. I'm going to go into one of our template apps that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks and show you how you can take a template and start customizing it to your specific business needs without having to start off, from scratch. The initial template that we have in our template app center right now is a CRM, but we will be adding other templates here in the very near future. And every business needs a CRM. They just may need it customized a little specifically to their needs. So to kick this off, I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to go over some of the release notes from this week that, from some updates to the product that we made. Now, starting off here in our knowledge base, but just for everybody's context, if you actually go to buildable.com and click knowledge base up in the top bar, you will see it actually directly brings you to our release notes, but then there's, all kinds of other help articles about what is Buildable, how to use Buildable, comparisons to some alternative programs out there, some of the language, what you can do within the system. So make sure you bookmark our knowledge base, and, if you have any questions, just, jump into there. If you can't get it answered, then we have ways that you can contact our team. So for instance, if I can find it, how to contact Buildable here is a help article that we have in the knowledge base with different email addresses to reach out to us if you have questions, feedback, or, anything else. So jumping back to the release notes. So these release notes went out 2 days ago, and this was for versions 4.62 to 4.71 of Buildable. We usually, send these notes out, every week or every other week. If you are a Buildable builder, you will receive it via email. You will also, we also update our socials with links to this, with some of the updates that we made, and then a knowledge base article is created for all the release notes. So you can see the whole history of the updates that we've been doing to the product since we launched back in January. So first is API token creation page. So this is a little technical, but we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks that we would be implementing the API for Buildable. Now, all the API is a fancy way of saying that Buildable can be now connected with other systems out there. So for instance, if you have, accounting information in QuickBooks, it could be connected with Buildable now via the API to pull in some of that accounting information. Now, as of right now, the API there would need to be code written utilizing the API to bring that information in. But in the not so distant future, we will be looking into building internal functionality within the Buildable product that are called essentially automations or ways for you to create direct connections to this other software without having to write any code. But this is in order to do that portion, we had to build the API, and the API is now up and running, and programmers and developers are able to use it to connect to other systems. So that's a big deal, because previously, a lot of times, previously Buildable was siloed, as they say, where, in order to get data into the system, you would have to export it. The goal with a platform like Buildable is that it can become the brain and the hub of your operations. And the only way it can do that is if you're using other systems, being able to pull that information in from those other systems and consolidate it into one platform. So that's the goal of Buildable. And now that we've got the API up and running, it's capable of doing that. There will be many improvements over the coming months to the API with additional calls and additional functionality of what it can do. But just think of the API as I like to tell people, it's like putting a front door on your house. Now people can come in and out of it. Now, this that I'm showing you here in the knowledge base article is talking about the token creation, and all the token creation essentially is saying is that allows you to create a key that opens up that door so that you can connect those systems together. We don't just leave the door unlocked so anybody can get into your system and push and pull your data. They need to have some type of access key to be able to do that. And administrators can create those API tokens now within the Buildable system so that it can access the data that they administer and in their applications. We worked on some of the condition grouping for some of our reports. So basically, you can create different groups of conditions on reports. So for instance, let's say you wanted a report that showed you, let's say you had a bunch of tasks in the system, and you wanted a report that showed you, all tasks completed in the last day, or all tasks completed within the last week. So that would essentially be two different condition groups. The first condition group would be all tasks with the status of completed, and the completed date is the last day. And then there would be a separate condition group of all tasks completed in the status of completed, and then completed in the previous week. Now, that was just a random example I pulled off the top of my head. Maybe that's not the best example, but in that use case, there would be two different condition groups. Previously, our reports were not letting you save multiple condition groups. Now we've fixed that bug in the system so you can create reports that have different multiple condition groups. This one was very minor, but if you require a field on one of your forms in Buildable, the little asterisk that was showing it as a required field was misaligning the fields. So that has been fixed so that that doesn't misalign the field. So for instance, if you had a required field and then two other fields next to it that weren't required, that required field would be misaligned due to that asterisk from the other field. So that's been resolved. There was an issue on some of our embedded tables. Now, what is an embedded table? Let me just jump into Buildable, and I'll jump into the application we're using to actually build the product. So as an example, if I go into one of these development tasks, this down here is an embedded table. So in Buildable, development tasks here would have a relationship to task updates, and that's why you see this embedded report down here. Previously, if you imported some data in and like imported in drop-down fields, some of the drop-down fields would show incorrectly in this embedded table. So that has been resolved. So all the drop-downs and field information is now showing, how it should in those tables. There was an issue when we had some tables grouped by a certain value. So what's grouping? Let's jump back into the home base application real quick. And I believe if I go into development tasks here and actually look at the table home, yeah. So in this table home for development tasks, we currently have it grouped by who the tasks are assigned to. So as you can see, Augustin has 1 task assigned to him, George has 2, and then Gaston has 3. So previously, if you wanted to actually go in and edit, bulk edit, so that's where you turn on the edit functionality here. So it acts essentially like Excel, where you can go in and bulk edit these different values. That was throwing some bugs and having some errors before. So we resolved that issue with the bulk editing. Keep going back to that tab. Let me close it out. Default dates. So this is another one that I can jump back to home base. So if I open up, let's see, I know that one of these records should have a, does this have a date field? No, let's jump into meeting tasks here. Okay, so for instance, here's a date field on our meeting tasks table. If you are an administrator or developer and you can go into the field settings, in the field settings, we have an option for date fields to default to the current date. And that's mainly for when you, if you have that turned on. So let me go ahead and turn that on. So now when you go in to do a new meeting task, you would want that field defaulted to the current date so you don't have to add that date into the system there. So if it is the current date, you can always switch this to a different date, but you may want it defaulted. It saves you button click, saves you typing things in. If you're creating records for that particular day, you don't have to type in the date every time. Previously, with that setting in the field settings to default to the current day, it was not doing anything. It was just showing a blank value here, and you had to still fill it out. So that's now been resolved. This is very, very minor. Many builders will not see this, but clear invalid URL messages. So sometimes, if you went to a URL that was an invalid URL, it would not, give you good information on why it was invalid. We've now updated those. So for example, one of them would be an invalid workspace. Please double check your web address, and you can click here to find your workspace. So better messaging for our end users, so they know, what possibly might be the issue and where to go to resolve that issue. Previously, we didn't really have that messaging in the system, so that's been improved. Developer mode updates. So developer mode, in our knowledge base, we speak about this, but basically developer mode is if you're in an application and you're an administrator and you can customize that application, you have options while you have this developer mode turned on. So additional options, so like table settings, deleting table, etc. But if you turn that developer mode off, you'll notice that some of those options go away. Previously, even if you weren't an administrator in an app, you had the ability to toggle developer mode on and off. Now, it didn't give you all the abilities to do it, to do the developer mode features, because you still weren't an administrator in the app, but that was a little confusing for end users. Why do you have a toggle for developer mode when you can't even do those functions and those roles? So now we only show the developer mode bar for you if you are in an application where you can actually do development. We also hide certain things now. So when you actually toggle developer mode off now, you'll notice, if you look at the bottom of my screen here, I've got reports, dashboards, settings, share down here. If I turn developer mode off, that all goes away. So we're now hiding some of those menu options as well for when you switch that off. And the main reason why we have the developer mode functionality that we added in is because some systems where you're an administrator in an application, sometimes you just need to use it as a regular user. And you don't want all that additional functionality to modify the application. So that basically allows administrators that have that ability to change the structure of the application, to add fields, to change the settings, etc., to turn that mode off so then they can just be a regular user in the system. So that's the goal behind developer mode. We already talked about API tokens, so that's something we discussed, but there are some back-end updates. Back-end updates are things that you all don't see on your screen, but are happening in the background of the product. And then we also talked about developer mode, but there again were also some back-end functionality that we had to work on to fix that and to update that so that you could see that functionality on your screen and on the front end. So, and I use some technical terminology at times like backend and front end. Basically, backend, is all the code that's under the hood. Think of that as your engine in your car. As you're driving down the road, you don't see that engine operating, but there's things going on in it that's making your car go down the road, making your car stop, etc. The front end is what you see. So that would be like the outside of the car, the fenders, what it looks like. That front end is usually connected in some way to the back end to make things work. So that's what front end and back end means. Back end is just, the components in the background that are actually doing the heavy lifting and doing the work. So I'll try to clarify some of those technical terms that I use because I know that we're going to have a mixed audience viewing these videos. But sometimes I slip into the old lingo of, being in this business and doing this role for many years. So that's the gist of our updates and our release notes. We're working on some other items now as well. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into Buildable now and jump out of home base. But as I've talked about on many office hours before, we use Buildable ourselves to build the product. So when I sent out the release notes and created the release notes article the other day, we had, our release here, our release cycle. We had all the things that were updated and that were resolved. And this is how we are managing building the product. We're using the product to do that. So it's been very, very helpful so far, and we're using it for many different use cases, even to store some of our documents for our corporation that was created. So it's nice. And then some of our office hour sessions down there. So as I mentioned, I want to go ahead today, and George did this on one of our office hour sessions a couple weeks ago. He showed our template app center. We're working on right now adding the URL in so that you can easily access it within your product. However, if you are already a builder and you want to access it, all you have to do is log into your Buildable account. And then once you're logged in and you're on your main home screen here, you go up to your URL and put in /templates. And that's going to take you to our template center. Again, this URL is going to be within the product. It's going to be under the build a new app. There's going to be an option to go to the template app center. But as of right now, you can get there if you add that to your URL, /templates. So the first application that we have in our template app center, and again, we are going to add a bunch of other applications to this, and then we're also going to open this up to the public so that if somebody builds a cool application, they can turn it on as a template, and then it will appear in the template app center so that other customers, other users, other builders can grab that application, can utilize it, and customize it to their needs. And we are looking at adding in paid apps in the future as well. So if you build a really, really nice app and spend a lot of time on it, you put it in the template app center, there's potential that you can generate some revenue from other users that want to use that application of yours. So that's coming, and that'll be growing. This template app center will be growing in the very near future. So to start this out, I am going to hit import app. And what this does when I do this is this takes this base CRM application that we have and it adds it into your account with you as the administrator, whoever that clicked import app. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in. So I'm going to go ahead and hit import app now. This is actually my first time doing the templates. So fingers crossed that there's no bugginess with it. But no, this should create the application here in just a second. And if it doesn't, then we will go into customizing another app. There we go. So just in a matter of what, 30 seconds there, that template application has now been created. It's called My CRM. If I click Buildable up here to take me back to my main home screen, you'll see there's the My CRM app right there. So I'm going to dive back into that. There are a few little things that we're still working on with these templates. For instance, it's not bringing in the icons currently of the tables that we've built in the template, so that's going to be resolved shortly. But this at least gives you a good framework of a CRM application and allows you to start from scratch, or rather than starting from scratch, that is. Now, one thing you also see when you log in or build any application in Buildable, we give you a default home screen here that gives you a lot of links to different help articles, and these take you to our knowledge base over here, to the help articles of what they are, of that particular item, and give you some insight. So for instance, let's just go ahead and click on one of those. So how to create a table. So if you click on that, that brings you to this table creation. So how to manually add tables to your app. And it walks you through screenshots of the process and what you need to do in a step-by-step guide. Again, if anyone ever needs any support or any feedback, we have, a support email, a feedback email where you can reach out and one of us will be in contact with you. But we're trying to really build out these help articles so that way it's it's a streamlined process and you don't need to reach out to us too much, because once you really get into Buildable and get the hang of it, it's a very easy product to use. So starting out on this, let's just look around the CRM real quick. So the CRM it's already built with projects table. So we'll go ahead and click into that. And we're not going to create anything, but just as an example, I'm going to hit new record here just to see what this looks like. So we have a projects table that has where you can put in a project title, select a person. I'm the only user in this application right now, so I would be the only one listed in this user dropdown. Same with potentially this one. Is this one? Okay, so that's not actually a user dropdown. That's coming from the contacts table here. That's why I'm not listed there, and we haven't created any records in the system yet. So there's no contact to select in that dropdown. We have a start date, a budget, and then a project objective. So, it's a good start to being able to enter one of your projects into the system. But of course, it can be added to it, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a minute. I go over to the customers table here. So let's just go ahead and hit new record. So you can see there's various information like customer name, status, start date, etc., and then some other contact information for them. We have a basic documents table in here, and this is mainly for you to be able to select one of the contacts and put select a document type and upload a document into the system. Even give it a title. Interactions. So every CRM, CRM stands for customer relationship manager. Like you want to be able to have interactions to be able to track your interactions with your customers. And what do we mean by interactions? So interactions would be, you have a meeting with someone, you have a phone call, you shoot them an email. You want that tracking in the system. I can't tell you how many times as a business owner having backup information and data has helped me and my team in so many instances. It's not only just the key man thing of, if somebody's working directly with a client, and something happens to them, you want to be able to still service that client. It's more than that. It's just, tracking all these interactions so everyone in your team is on the same page. If you have a tracking system like this where you have these interactions, there's a lot less back and forth between your team trying to understand what's going on. So having this all in one central repository saves your team tons of time, and also covers you in instances of knowing what you actually discussed with that client and being able to refer back. There's a to-do list. So this is very much similar to like a task type table. So you could create tasks, a status, select who it was entered by, and throw in some other information there. So this is a task mechanism. And then we have contacts over here. So this would be any customers you create in the system, that would be the companies. And then any contacts you have at those companies, you would add into the system here. So if I hit new record, you'll see I'm able to choose, there's no customers. We haven't added any customers into the system yet, but I would be able to choose a customer that this contact pertained to. So we'll add some data here in the system in a second. But the first thing that that I want to start doing and that I want to really hammer home is that every business, as I mentioned, essentially can use a CRM. And although this template is a base CRM, any business can grab this template and further customize it and add to it. That is the beauty and power of Buildaible. There are a ton of CRM products out there, but most of them are very, very, how I should say, rigid or static. They're not dynamic in that you have to use the fields they provide you and the labels that they created for you. Well, that's not how Buildaible is. Buildaible, you can add additional fields, you can change the names of things, and that's the beauty of having these templates, because they can be further customized for any industry and any business. One other very minor thing, and this is kind of a me thing, I like having my tables that somewhat relate to each other in a better list. Closer to each other. So over here on the sidebar in Buildaible, I mentioned this a few weeks ago in office hours, but this is personal preference. You can drag and drop these around and move them closer. So for instance, to each other. So for instance, I would want customers and maybe contacts to be close, and then task, which is this to-do list, would be underneath the projects. So you've kind of got projects and tasks. And additionally, I'd probably move this interactions up so that's closer to my contacts as well. So that gives me my customers, contacts, interactions, projects, to-do list, and documents. So first off, I mentioned that we have one little bug in the system now when it creates these templates that it's not pulling in the table icons. But in the meantime, if you'd like and you have developer mode turned on, you could hit the down arrow on one of these tables, table settings, and then if you click this icon, edit icon right here, you can now choose an icon. So let's just say for customers, we want it to be that, and we want it to be green. And I'll go ahead and save this. And now that is now the icon for this table. I can also do it over here. If I hit the little three dots next to a table, hit table settings, and then click into the icon. And for this, maybe contacts, I want them to be like that. So now I've got some icons to kind of differentiate between my tables. And what you'll also notice is now that I've made, for instance, this customers one, this green house, when I go into this contact record to add a new contact, that's the icon that now shows in this customer dropdown. So it's telling me, hey, this is coming from that customer's table. This is where you're going to be choosing a customer. So let's customize this a little bit. So we're just going to do a few fields here, but just to kind of give you the idea of how you can take a template application and start customizing it. So jumping into the customers, new record here, you'll see that, again, we just went over kind of some of these fields here. You'll see I've got customer name. So maybe if I'm a nonprofit, I don't want that to be called customer name. Maybe I want that to be called donor or donor name. To do that, as long as you have developer mode on, you'll see these little this little three dots icon next to each field. So you can click into that, edit field, and then you can change this to donor name. So now that's been updated to be donor name. If I go back to the home of the table, you'll see it's now donor name there as well. I'm going to jump into this field because I want this to say donor status. And at the same time, this is a CRM that looks like it's geared a little bit more towards sales. Maybe I don't want it to say lead there. Maybe I want it to say, prospective donor. or maybe I want it to say active, and then maybe I want it to say past donor. So I'll add donor to all these. And past, maybe I want past to be red. So you can change the field names, change some of the options. I could even throw in, do I want this to be required? Do I want there to be a default value? So in this instance, yeah, I'll select I want it to be prospective donor, or prospect donor to be, change that, prospective, because I keep saying that. So let's keep it that way. And now done. So now what you'll notice, it just selected prospective donor automatically for me. And the reason being is that when I set it to that being the default value when I add a new record to the system. So now whenever you come in to create a new donor in the system, it's automatically going to be set to prospective donor, which you can change, but that just saves you a button click right there. If you add up all those button clicks throughout the year, it's going to save you a lot of time. Change this one to donor. Let's say instead of start date, let's say first donation date. Customer industry, donor industry. Customer notes here, we'll make this say donor notes. And then that was modifying some of the fields that came pre-built in this template. But at the same time, now that I'm a nonprofit, using this, maybe there's something else that I want to change. I want to add like additional fields that didn't exist before. So one that I can think of off the top of my head would be a field for, which I'm going to hit this little down arrow right here and hit add field. We could say, because this is kind of gearing it like this is a donor company, and then the contacts are who we would put at that donor company. So since this is a company, I would say maybe I want to create something that's like donor annual revenue. May not be the right term for it, but we'll go with it for now. So we'll make that a numeric field. And we will add a suffix, or a prefix rather, of a $sign on that. Go ahead and hit done. And now that field was added right down here, but I'll show you how we can go and customize this form and maybe move it right up here next to industry. At the same time, while we do that, that is where we would update the label of this section as well. You can update this label right here on this form, and we probably want that to say donor information. So I want to go in and modify this form now and move this field right next to here, and I want to change this. To do that, I would hit this down arrow again, and then edit form. Now that I'm on this page, I have to move this donor annual revenue from this contact information section over to this customer information section. So I would hit the three little dots next to it and click under move to another section, customer information. So now that is now moved to this section. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. Not too small to where the field name wraps. Make this smaller. Probably shorten the website because that doesn't need to be that big. And I'm now going to move this up into this section. At the same time, when that field was added, it made this section over here a lot longer. So I'm going to reduce the section size over here. And before we go, I'm going to click into this section here. I'm going to change this to say donor information. Now, when I save, it's going to take me back to where we were before and show me what that form looks like now. So let me go ahead and save this. And there we go. So now we have the donor information section renamed. We have the donor annual revenue field right here created, which we can type into, and we set it to throw commas every third place. So it's showing those correctly. And the sections are now streamlined and cleaned up and on the same level there, aligned. So let's go ahead and create just a test owner. So we'll call them test. If I can spell. Select a random industry, technology, and let's say their annual revenue is $4 million. Wow. Just hit a button on my Mac and sent me to my lock screen, so I apologize there for a sec. So typing this in, 555. So that's all the information I'm going to enter for now. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So now we've got that test company donor in the system as a prospective donor here, and they are a technology industry and they have a $4 million annual revenue. This is random. You'd never do this with one of these companies, but just to kind of show one thing, our fields here, if you were to put in a negative value and save this, it shows negative values in red like that, which I think is pretty cool, and positive values in green. Let's go ahead and save that back. Open up these fields a little bit so I can see what. So now I've converted. Oh, what's one other thing I need to do? This still says customers. I don't like that. I want it to say donors now. So change that, hit the down arrow, table settings, and let's change that to say donors. And we'll make this say a donor. Yeah. So now, oh, still showing customers there. Let me just do a quick refresh. Bam, updated. Okay, awesome. So now this is your donors table. The next thing, very reminder, we're not going to do too much more today, but just going to go into the contacts here. Let's see, let's open up a contact record here. Is there anything we need to choose on here? I don't mind it saying contact, but I don't like that it still says customer here. So I am going to edit this field and make this say donor. And let's go ahead and just enter one in the system. So let's call it Justin is with the test company donor that we just created. And if I had a lot more options in here, cool thing I could do is just hit view and see, oh, is that the right company? Okay, yeah, that's the right company. That's the one that I want. So let me go ahead and select that one. Title, I am president. Let's say and phone number is 555. And source by. So this would be a user field. So it's who created this contact, this donor contact in the system there, who found them. So that would be me in this case. So we'll go ahead and save them. Now the other cool part about this is now that I've added in this contact, and we've shown this on previous office hours, but just to kind of recap a little bit. If I go back to that donor and open them up now, I will now see down here, not in the documents because I haven't added a document to this yet, but if I click on this contacts tab, I will now see that contact that I've now created at that donor company. Now, obviously, we could go through and we could continue further customizing this application, but I think, we've kind of shown in here, what I've tried to show today is that, hey, we're going to have some template apps out there. They can be used across all industries. If you're not ready to go ahead and build your own application, grab one of those template apps that we have and then customize it a little. The cool part about this is that, we as a team are building this and we're building a lot of these templates and we've been doing this for years. The one good thing you're going to get out of these templates is they're going to be very well structured and set up, going in the right direction. and it allows you to get a good head start there and to start kind of customizing it to your unique needs and building and adding things into the system, adding data into the system, and starting to actually use Buildable. Of course, you can go further and start adding in other tables and other information. For instance, maybe you want to track like all the donations, and there's not something currently in the CRM for nonprofits to track the donations. Well, I could add a donations table and start tracking when my donors started donating, and run reports on that data and see a history of, hey, who donated in the last quarter, who donated for the last year, what are my totals for my donations, what are some of my projections if they continue to donate. So taking one of these base applications, customizing it to your needs, and then further adding to it is what I would always suggest to do. Even when, in the past, when we have worked with clients directly and built systems for them, I always suggest phasing it, building a component, getting your team in there and start using it before you add additional features. There's no point in building the be all end all solution and just throwing your team into the wild. Let's get them in there, get them to start using the system, get comfortable with the system, and then start adding in additional features once you've used it for a while and you kind of figured out what your additional needs may be. Because even when you're building an application or building the system, you may not be thinking of everything. And that, again, is the beauty of Buildable, is that it can be an iterative application. You can constantly add to it and even pull back from it as your business changes, as your needs change. And it's powerful enough to grow with you, essentially. So that's the gist of today's office hours. We are going to be, releasing some new items here in the very near future. I saw a peek behind the curtain recently of some of our programmers that are working on some of our AI features in our AI data analyst, where you can talk to it and just ask it questions about your data, and it can report back to you. And those features look awesome. I can't wait till that's implemented. And that's going to be coming in the coming weeks and months. So really excited about that. Really excited about our AI builder that we'll also be releasing, that you just talk to AI and it builds it for you. So lots of cool features coming in the coming weeks and months, and we'll really be working with some nonprofits this month, and then moving into other industries in the coming months as well. So check back for these office hours. Stay tuned to our knowledge base, our socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place. And yeah, just happy building.